The financial markets are in turmoil. Plunging stock prices have resulted in billions of euros in losses. The financial community no longer trusts the pronouncements of politicians. It had hoped someone would find a magic solution, but no one has.
The debt crisis developed over many years in some countries. It can't be eliminated in one fell swoop, but we're convinced that constant and credible work will restore this trust.
Nachvollziehbares und abrechenbares Arbeiten wird dieses Vertrauen wiedergewonnen werden.
One of the suggestions Nicolas Sarkozy and Angela Merkel made at their summit in Paris was for European economic governance, a new agency that would meet twice a year. Experienced European Union politicians doubt it would be a cure-all.
The problem in the European Union is not any lack of bodies, councils or whatever. The problem is that we don't implement the agreements we do make.
The EU's two most powerful politicians made additional proposals whose implementation would probably be difficult. For example, a tax on financial transactions in Europe. Investors would have to pay to buy and sell financial instruments.
Britain, with its financial center in London, has the lion's share of financial market volume in Europe. So this tax would massively affect Britain's interests. I can't imagine they would be eager to agree to this.
Chancellor Merkel's coalition partner, the free market FDP, is skeptical too.
The details will have to be spelled out so we know the conditions it can be introduced under without driving capital, which is highly mobile, to financial centers outside of Europe.
A third suggestion is to set a national debt ceiling to keep countries like Italy from taking on more debt. On the model of Germany's debt limit, every country in the Eurozone would write the principle of government austerity into its constitution.
It's a sensible demand, but when I consider that constitutional changes would have to be instituted in far more than a dozen countries, in some of which the parliamentary majorities are very uncertain, and in some cases requiring a referendum, well, it could be a long road.
Moritz Schulerich is less skeptical. A number of U.S. states already have constitutional debt limits or balanced budget laws.
If you look at the United States, a construction similar to what we have in Europe in a year or two already exists. There, individual states like California and Connecticut have balanced budget laws, forbidding them from running up debt greater than their revenues.
So could the euro be rescued by means of eurobonds? Before Sarkozy and Merkel's meeting, debtor nations like Italy, but also financial institutions, called for sharing of debts across the Eurozone. Currently, Germany has to pay just under 2.5% interest to borrow on the financial markets. Italy has to pay 6%, and Greece more than 10%. Eurobonds would enable all Eurozone countries to borrow at the same rate. Germany would have to pay more interest, while Italy and Greece would pay much less than they do now. But for now, this is nothing more than a proposal. To prevent a further rise in interest rates for hard-pressed countries like Italy and Spain, the European Central Bank is buying up their sovereign bonds.
In my opinion, we've already moved into the forbidden zone. What the European Central Bank is doing may be necessary in this situation, but it's not really permissible and right.
Merkel and Sarkozy want to lead the way. But in fact, they're being driven by the markets, and experts say it's their own fault.
Their policies have opened them up to extortion. Because on the one hand, they say they want solidarity with other member states, but on the other hand, they aren't willing to say we'll pay for them. And this position that the European governments have been trying to maintain for some time now is not credible. There are only two clear solutions. Either the whole Eurozone is jointly liable for the debts, or there's the possibility of restructuring debt and letting individual member states go bankrupt.
The offers coming from Paris don't seem to satisfy the markets, where extreme volatility continues.